think my biggest losses last year was Eusebius Makaiser dying and Ama Ataidu dying. I was like, oh, you know.
No, I'm sorry to hear that. That's
Yeah.
Especially if they have. Sorry, I have to change the battery. Especially if they have been such an inspiring part of your life for so long, it makes it
We
makes it
have the
very
memory.
difficult.
So
Sorry.
we have the memories, so there's that.
Yes,
You know.
yes. I think I'm unfortunately a bit a melancholic soul, so I struggle. But you're right. It's nice that we have so much more memories in that time. My father also, he lived to the age of 93, so I know I should be, and I am very grateful. But at the end of the day, I still just struggle because this also almost is that you are used to it, and yeah, that person is a part of your life, and you don't know it any other way. Sorry, I'm just putting in the new battery because it exhausted. And now, so what I was thinking is these terms, yeah, um, discrimination, racism, we use them a lot. And I thought it is actually important, especially now that I have the opportunity to talk to a writer, a novelist, um, to drill down on the language, to kind of establish a clear language, a common grasp of the meaning of the words. So I'm really very interested to know what is your understanding or definition of the term um, racism. What is in there, and what is included in it, and what shouldn't even be a part of it? Yeah.
You know, I think at the end of the day, we all have like a certain level of bias and whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So where we'll say statements like, "Oh, Indian people are like, Black people are like, white people are like, etc."
Yeah.
You know, but I look at racism as something that's deeper. And racism to me is, when somebody has control
Yeah.
of the means of production, you know, if, say, uh, a person in the village somewhere in Switzerland
Mm.
who has like a little, like a little garden, and that's how they survive. And they
Mm.
say, I hate Black people, you know. I would say that person is prejudiced. I wouldn't call them racist.
Yeah.
If, on the other hand, an industrialist in Zurich
Yeah.
says, I hate, a banker in Zurich says, I hate Black people,
Mm.
that one is a racist for the simple reason that he controls how many people can have access to funds. So he
Yeah.
might then say, well, if a Black person wants to get a loan, they are going to get 20% interest rate as opposed to, you know, 10% interest rate for everybody
Yeah.
else. If a Black person wants to work in this company, they can only rise so far and not
Yeah.
further. Are you get? So to me, racism is about power.
Yeah.
If, if you have power and you control it, well, I believe on so many levels we all have a certain level of prejudice against other people, you
Yeah.
know, uh, because of perhaps lack of exposure or because of the few people that we've been exposed to from that particular culture. And that's perhaps like why you have right now, you might have like some Africans who are like, oh, you know, um, Why are we supporting the Palestinians? Because Arabs are racist
Yeah.
and they put our people in prison and stuff and everything. Uh, they they enslave our people in whatever, and then you always say, well, you can't say Arabs,
Mm.
and you're looking at uh, Saudi Arabia and what happens there with like indentured laborers and stuff, and you decide that you're also gonna put this on Palestinians who've never really had that kind of power to do that. When
Yeah.
Palestinians do that, we can question them, but not now, not
Yeah.
here, Yeah. So that's what I believe about racism. I
Yeah.
think it's a poor thing. We all prejudiced, and I listen. I'm obviously it's not okay if somebody in rural Eastern Cape is prejudiced towards a white person, towards a brown person, towards whoever and stuff and everything. Um, but it's not as impactful
Yeah.
as racism. And racism is about means of production. It's about eating. It's about, you know,
Yeah. And
yeah.
where do you see its, or where do you suspect its causes, and where do you see its effects?
But I mean, obviously, the causes, have always been. We live in a world where white is on top, and so there is white superiority that has been pervasive in the world. You see, even if you go to Japan, Japanese girls are trying to be, as white as they can be. You
Yeah.
go to China, as white as they can be. You come here to Africa, you go to India, you have the bleaching. You come here to Africa, there's the bleaching and stuff because essentially white is the standard. White is what to aspire to,
Mm.
and so forth and so on. You know, um, so I think white supremacy did an amazing job of selling itself as
Yeah.
a default position.
And literature, you are a writer. What in your opinion is the role of literature with this problem of racism and discrimination?
I think it's like with my writing, I'm constantly trying to get people to question themselves, not just on race, but on gender, on homophobia and so forth and
Mm.
so on. So, and I'm constantly wanting us to question our prejudices, you know, uh, to turn them up and and question, why do I feel this way? Why am I like this?
Yeah.
And I always think in questioning, we then perhaps realize, no, ultimately, we're all the same people. We love and laugh and hate and hurt and so forth and so on, as I
Yeah.
like to say, So, that's generally my position. I want us to question the way we think. I want us to question the way we treat the person next to
Mm.
us. I always say to my son, I'm agnostic bordering on atheism.
Yeah.
I think I'm more agnostic than I am agnostic. But I always say, you know, in the event that there is no heaven, heaven is here.
Yeah.
And I want you to treat the next person as you'd like to be treated,
Mm.
you know? And I think that's the core tenet of any religion. Treat another person as you'd like to be treated.
Yeah.
Be decent. That's all, you know? And I I often say that in us, there's a God and there's a Satan.
Yeah.
God and Satan thrives in us. And because God and Satan thrive in us, when we feed the God side, we do the good stuff.
Yeah.
When we feed the bad side, we do the Satan stuff. So everybody will be like, this person is evil and stuff. But I don't think anybody is ever purely evil. And
Yeah.
that's why I always try to work with in my literature. I don't think anybody is ever purely evil, but I also don't think anybody is ever purely good.
Yeah. So we need to work these muscles of goodness and
But we're constantly
get
working.
rid of the badness tissue. Thank you. Now I'm thinking again on the sun side, on the reverse side, to get to these definitions. We mentioned the word empowerment. For you, what is the definition and meaning of this term on the strong sunshiny side? Empowerment. What is in there all?
I think it's really just extending timber. It's really extending grace to other people.
Mm.
You know, um, you don't know what the next person is dealing with. You know, and so when we extend grace, we are ourselves empowered. We become better people. Just when you say, no, I'm gonna be kinder, I'm gonna be uh less mean, I'm gonna listen to that other person's story, but also it's saying to people, I am giving boundaries as well. It's
Mm.
being empowered is the ability to say no, which is a full
Mm.
sentence, by the way. You know,
Mm.
no, I love you, but I'm not gonna do this.
Yeah.
You know, no, I love you, but I'm not gonna let you pay me this amount of money. No, you know,
Yeah.
and so forth and so on. That's empowerment to me, and the ability to say no, because people say, "Oh, Zooks, I can't believe you refuse to whatever," and I'm like, no, but this I knew I wasn't gonna execute it well.
Mm.
I knew that this was not my role. I knew that it wouldn't work for me. So
Yeah.
I said no. So it's so important to know your limits and be able to say no. I've had people say to me, "Oh, can you contribute a poem to us for this and this journal?" I'm like, I'm not a
Mm.
poet. I'm
Yeah.
not a poet. I'm not going to contribute a poem to you.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. To also keep a realistic self-image. Yeah, so I'm gonna do a final, or we are gonna do a final little bit about these expressions and definitions and terms, and I was thinking that there are many expressions for people of color and the different subgroupings, so to speak. And I know it's impossible to name all of them, but I'm gonna name a few which I've come across and which I know is people of color, BIPOC, brown people, racialized people, blacks, etc. My question for you is, where do you see the relevance, of giving the right names, of appropriate naming, and which which of these terms concerning people of color to you, works or makes sense? Yeah.
Listen, I am Temba. Those terms only really like work in the global north. You
Yeah.
know, myself, I'm an African, and I'm in Africa right now. So
Yeah.
I'm a person full stop. When I'm here, I'm a
Mm.
person. Only when I get on a plane and then I find myself, like in Europe or whatever.
Yeah.
Then it's like, hey, I'm a I'm a person of color and stuff and everything. But
Mm.
generally, I'm just a person. I'm, I was joking to one of my friends earlier that I am, because this is Africa and we're African, we are the standard.
Mm.
So, in fact, when you when you deal with language in South Africa
Yeah.
or anywhere actually on this continent, at least the languages that I speak, uh, in Kiswahili, in Kenya, um, you'd say five people, you know.
Yes.
So here you'd say five people. So in Kiswahili you'd say five people and a Mzungu. That's a white person.
Yeah.
Here you'd say, there were three people, no Mlungu, you know.
Yes.
So that's a white person because we are the standard. So, so that doesn't, what you call it, that doesn't really configure in my brain most of the time.
Mm.
Um, I even joke around, and I say it very, very frequently that when people are doing stuff with me, that they should never refer to me as an African writer. I'm a writer,
Yeah.
period, because I'm
Yeah.
the standard. I'm a
Yeah.
writer in Africa because nobody ever says uh, Jonathan Franzen is
You're right.
uh, an American white writer, or you
Yeah.
know, Alice Munro is a Canadian writer,
Yeah.
or an American writer essentially, because Canada is in America. Uh, so why would anybody refer to anybody as an African writer? I'm a
Yeah.
writer. You can then get into the semantics of, is she a good writer or does she suck?
Mm.
But that's about you know. Zukiswa
Yeah.
Wanner is a terrible writer. Zukiswa Wanner is a brilliant writer. Zukiswa Wanner is an average writer. Whatever,
Yeah.
you know. But I'm a writer. I'm the standard, And as a human being on this particular continent, and I have very deliberately decided that I do my stuff here,
Yeah.
So I canceled all my gigs in Europe.
Yeah.
Uh,
Did you run
yeah.
into some funny, I don't know, situations or irritations when this issue came up, in the UK or yeah, in these other or Germany, yeah. I imagine that
Which issue?
that you would be explicitly singled out as like African writer
Oh
or
yeah,
yeah.
I'll tell you that was really funny. I was at Hay Festival, right?
Uh-huh.
And I was on panel with Nadifa Mohammed, who is a Somali writer, a Somali British writer that I absolutely adore. She's amazing. And
Mm.
she's doubly amazing because her father has the same name as my son.
Oh
you know.
wow.
So,
That's
so
coincidence. Yeah.
I always call her my grandchild. Anyway,
Yeah.
so I was on panel with Nadifa and we're at the Hay Festival, and somebody said, in the audience, they said, yes, but how about writing in African languages? Yeah, 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 right? You know,
Mm.
and I said to Nadifa, I said, let me answer that. And I turned and I responded to them in Xhosa, right?
Yeah.
And I said to them, did you understand that?
Yeah.
And they said, no. And I said, yeah, right. I write because I want to communicate something. If I'm going to insult you as a British person about the nonsense that you did to my people, I want you to be able to know it. You
Yeah,
know,
exactly.
the point of language is to communicate, right? Um, but in so saying, this is not for me to say, oh, if somebody, I should downgrade somebody who writes in his Xhosa or in his Zulu and Sepedi and stuff and everything. No, actually, because an artist writes how they feel. An artist, we don't tell a painter what colors to use
Yeah.
um, when they're painting. So we cannot tell a writer what language to use, because language is our paint, our colors, it's our
Yeah.
paintings. You know?
Yeah, so you wouldn't quite agree with Ngugi wa Thiong'o with his
No,
take
I've,
that.
I've never agreed with him. I've said that to him. I've never agreed with him. I tell him
Yeah,
is one of my elders, and I've had this. I had this conversation with him in 2007 already,
yeah,
and his son, Koma, is I've published him, and is a very good friend of mine. In fact, I was talking to him earlier
yeah,
today. So I've told the dad about that. I've said I don't agree with that,
yeah,
because the point of language is to communicate, you
yeah.
know. And if I'm gonna communicate, if I'm gonna insult somebody, I want them to hear the insult.
Yes, yes, and to be confronted with the problem, yeah. Um, so I was a bit scheming through my questions because I know there is unfortunately always a limit of time, but I wanted to look at
And
one of your works in particular, the novel Man of the South, if that is okay with you.
that's
So
absolutely
I'll give a quick breakdown what I kind of saw as some of the main issues. I hope it's more or less fits it. And then
you
I
know
have
when my book gets published,
yeah,
it doesn't belong to me anymore. It belongs to the reader. So you can interpret however you want.
okay. Yeah, I'll see. Just a quick breakdown. Um, so I think it explores these issues of masculinity and identity and social expectations through this interconnected lives of three men. And there's Mfundo, the South African jazz musician who struggles with his responsibility as stay-at-home dad, and also his relation towards his gay best friend. Then there is Mzilikazi, a Zimbabwean, and he is kind of trying to balance his career ambitions with his family responsibilities. And there is Tinaye.
Guy,
Sorry?
Kaze is the gay Zulu guy.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Sorry, I confused those two. Sorry. I didn't get as much sleep as I should have. And so each of these three characters, which you have, kind of offers an insight into these complexities of the modern identities and sexuality, etc. And I guess my question is very straightforward. What was your what were the things you were pursuing in Men of the South? Did you have any particular aims, and what kind of was on your mind and heart when you were writing Men of the South?
I really I'd like to claim that I was being profound and so forth and so on, but it wasn't. It really wasn't that profound, really. I would like to claim that it was.
Yeah,
Um, but I wrote The Madams, which was my first novel in 2006.
yeah,
And when I wrote Madams, it was about three women and the complications of modern day friendships,
mm,
and being a modern woman, and the what you call it, and really, like, Men of the South was a reply to um uh uh the Madams, because I wanted to also then, like, get into a space where I question what is masculinity, what are the problems that men have as well, you know.
yeah,
But in addition, I decided that I was gonna write from the perspective of the three different men, because with my first two books, there was somebody who called me chicklet, and I
yeah,
said I've never heard the term dicklet
yeah,
or penislet. So I was offended, and I wanted to see whether they were gonna call me Dicklet now, because I'd written a
yeah,
book of three. So it wasn't that deep. But
yeah.
I just a reply. I wanted to engage with masculinities and the problems that I think men face in contemporary world. Well, or at least that time.
Mm. And have you seen many changes in this regard since it was 2000? 2012. 2012. No, I'm not
No,
sure.
it was
2010, sorry. 2010. Have you seen, changes in these different types of masculinities, or do you think it's still very
Or,
similar?
to be honest, today I think Mzilikazi would be like this old fart would be called um um you know cis is cis is a cis man essentially,
Hmm.
SIS, CIS rather, um, because he might be gay, but he doesn't. I don't think he would understand uh, quite the you know the many different sexualities that we're now dealing with
Yeah.
and the many different genders that we're dealing with. I personally also have had to like work through that as well as a person, like, oh, okay, you know, because when I wrote that, you were either gay or straight, or bi,
Hmm.
and now I'm like, okay, no, maybe there are also these other sexualities that you need to work
Mm.
through, right?
Yeah.
Understand? And it's easier for my son, is 18 years old,
Mm.
and so he's constantly teaching me.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a extreme diversity of identities
Yeah.
that are
I
available,
imagine
so to speak.
it's on another level for you as a teacher.
Yeah, I mean, here I haven't had to deal with it yet so much. I think because maybe the community I work with in Switzerland, here in Zurich, is kind of conservative. And I don't know if that means it's not present or it's just much more hidden. And the children are still younger, they're 12 to 15. So personally, a few times I have talked to students about this, but not so much yet. And it's also a bit problematic, of course, when it's the issue of sexuality as a teacher who's not the main teacher to address it. It's a bit dangerous.
I've just remembered the Strawhof Museum. That's where the exhibition was.
What's it called? Sorry.
Strawhof.
Ah, yeah, 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 yeah. I think I've also been there once, at least already. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'll be.
So it's in the central business district, close to the banks and stuff and everything. But that's where the exhibition was, and I'm
Yeah.
sure if you go there, you'll be able to see like uh they should have footage of the exhibition that I'm talking
Ah,
about. It was here.
excellent.
We did it from I did it from June until September.
Yeah, yeah. I'm on vacation, so I have some time to go and have a look. So I have to be a bit quicker now. There was one more thing which I found, I mean, many more things, but one more I'm going to pick, which I thought was really uh, very important and interesting, is that in May 2023, you were invited to this Palestine Festival of Literature, so before the October 7th attack. And could you just tell us a bit about your experience of this festival of literature, things that inspired you, the people, stuff that maybe also shocked you? How was that whole Palestine Festival of Literature experience like?
Right. So I entered. If Temba, you'd give me like just 1 minute. So
Yes, of
essentially,
course.
you were asking about Palestine.
Yeah, your experience, what maybe inspired you, shocked you, etc.
So right from the get-go, it was jarring,
Yeah,
you know. And I'm gonna read from one of my favorite writers,
sure.
if that's okay.
Yes, absolutely.
On crossing the border from Jordan, I have that tight knot in my stomach when I see the Israeli flag. The same one I have when South Africans of a Pella U fly the apartheid flag. How can a piece of fabric elicit such a physical reaction? Am I overreacting? I ask myself. Outside, a young woman in military overalls with a Israeli badge on the arm is smiling as she talks on her cell phone. Is she speaking to a family member, a friend perhaps, on plans for the week? I look at her and think, she's a child. Surely she wouldn't be expected to be suspicious of the three French young men who have been chatting to me in halting English, while I answered in equally bad French, merely because of their names. These three boys who are with someone who appears to be a cooler older sister or aunt. These boys would tell me they're going to Jerusalem for a day. These boys who look only a few years younger, a few years older than my son. I wonder whether I think she won't talk to them in a certain way, harass them, or anyone with an Arabic name because she's pretty. If she were unattractive, would I think that? We get off the bus at 11 in the morning, and I ask myself whether my reaction to the Israeli flag was negatively reactionary, whether the young woman in military overalls and her colleagues may actually just be like all average immigration officials I've observed where I've traveled when I've traveled by road. It turns out Israeli border officials are worse than anyone I've ever experienced before. Our luggage goes through easily enough, our humans, not so much. We're a party of a little under 20, all going to the same literary festival. In my queue, one of us is being harassed by a soldier at the border who cannot really and truly be okay because his abrasive voice can only be one used by someone reacting to having taken steroids but forced to sit in an immigration booth instead of working out. He's talking to this writer as though she's not human. And he wishes, oh man, he looks like he wishes that there were no plexiglass between them because he would like to poke her in the chest to emphasize every question he's asking. Where is she going? A literature festival, she answers. What is a literature festival? I whisper to the photographer in front of me. Not a film festival, not a music festival. We smile, but not too much because we may become victims of our smiles. Later, of course, we shall joke about how the question, what is a literature festival, is one many of our family and friends also want an answer to. But in the present, it's not fun. This man is yelling so loudly at some point that another yelling immigration official asks him to keep it down. The other yelling immigration official is also giving Ethiopian and Buka shortlisted writer, Maza Mengiste, the same third degree about who she is. If she's really a writer, where is her book? Fortunately, Maza has a copy of a book in her hand luggage, not to sell. Always carry a copy of a book in hand luggage, right next to passport, in case any immigration official doubts that you're a writer. This book does not help Maza get off scot-free. If I call my Ethiopian friends in Israel, will they be able to verify that you're a writer? Possible counter. If I call my Jewish friends, will they be able to verify that you're an immigration official? Except highly unlikely that any of her Jewish friends are Zionists, and therefore equally unlikely they would know an immigration official who works for the Israeli state.
Wow. It's beautifully put. Beautiful, beautiful capture of horror, of shock and horror.
So that's actually how I can let you know.
This is your latest or one of your latest writings.
It's an essay, yes. It's a long form. You can see it's small. It's a long form essay.
Ah, this one I still want to get. Yeah, I've seen it already on Amazon, and I was thinking, yeah, this is peculiar to literature. You can give a beauty in language that is jarringly different with this situation of discomfort, unreality, disbelief, everything.
So
yeah.
all say you were saying what was my experience. All this to say that was my first experience of entering because nobody enters Palestine
Yeah.
with permission from Israel. So when they tell you about Palestine and Israel, that's rubbish,
Mm.
you know, because you have Palestine, you either have to go through Tel Aviv, which is
Yeah.
manned by Israeli officials, or you have to go through the border that I went through, which is manned by Israel again.
Yeah.
However, when I met Palestinians, they were absolutely, utterly, like there was such a generosity of spirit. There was so much kindness.
Yeah.
There was laughter, there was anger, and but I couldn't understand how Palestinians could still laugh despite how, you know, how much they have to deal with every single day.
Yeah.
It's like it's like they need to seek permission even to breathe, you know? And if Israeli soldiers see Palestinians laugh, it's almost a sin. So you must be, what are you doing wrong? What are you
Yeah.
like? They and I don't know, whether it exists in Zurich. I know it exists in the US, where
Yeah.
there's like the police of black happiness. If
Yeah.
you have like five black people walking and they're just laughing and whatever, police are looking at you like, what is wrong with you? What have you just done?
Yeah.
Have you committed a crime?
Something has
Right?
gone wrong. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
That
it was.
was Palestine for me, and I don't think anybody can go to Palestine and live unchanged. And Palestine Festival of Literature actually makes you travel to different cities and this was started um, by an Egyptian writer, you know. So that's how this literature festival is like. It takes it to the people, and I don't know anybody who has ever been there and hasn't got into a space where they're like, oh my God, the person who did the cover for this, is Molly Crabapple. She is Jewish American,
Yeah.
you know and it was important for me to have, she was part of that journey as well, but it was important for me to have a Jewish person do it so that I highlight that um, Zionism is not anti-Semitism. Zionism and racism. Zionism is apartheid, you
Yeah.
know?
It's yeah, it's one more horrible form of discrimination. But yeah, I think this is yeah, one of the big problems, that we have always this mix up between anti-Zionism and anti-Semitism, which is not helpful.
Absolutely, but also there is the weird thing where it's like, how do people not understand that Palestinians are Semitic people, you know?
Yeah.
They are Semitic people. So you can't then say it's anti-Semitism. It's absolute nonsense, But
Mm.
there we are, and
The second to last part is I call it non-trigger trigger, and the idea is that I give a few just one word expressions, and you say something very briefly, just like what pops into your head. And of course, trigger nowadays has a negative meaning, but it's meant more as a point to start, a kind of to improvise, but just like super briefly to get the, I don't know, free-flowing mind. Does that work for you?
okay,
Okay.
that's fine.
Okay, I'll just throw the expressions at you and you give me what pops into your head. Madiba.
Yeah. First president.
Chiclet.
Yeah, Winnie. Next question.
Chiclet.
No, I said Winnie.
Ah, okay. Ah, Wakanda.
Did you say Makanda? It's like the place.
Wakanda, yeah, from Black Panther, from the movie.
Wakanda. Superhero.
Kwaito.
Music.
Single motherhood.
Huh?
Single motherhood.
Brokenness.
Okay. Africana.
Life.
Okay. Obama, either one or both.
Neoliberal.
Then Isikosa.
Language.
Things fall apart.
And then they rise.
Okay. And final one, Sindiwe Magona.
Beautiful.
Okay, thank you very much. Now, very last bit, just to get a bit of inspiration from you, which we already have, but or some pointers, I should say. Do you have some book recommendations? Which would be the books which you recommend to people?
Yeah, absolutely. Leila Abulela's novel River Spirits, I would absolutely recommend. Anybody who wants to really get an idea of Palestine is Susan Abulela's, Susan Abulawa's, and I always think that people are able to tell more truth in novels than anything else. So Susan Abulawa's Mornings in Janine and Isabella Hamad. Isabella Hamad's book is actually currently shortlisted for the Women's Prize. I forget the title right now, but it's really worth a read.
I can look it up and put it on the video. Absolutely.
So yeah, obviously, please, Nervous Conditions by Tsidanga Rembwa. If you really want something that's beautiful and funny and gorgeous, and just gets you into Africa and a certain type of Africa that you didn't think you know, you would really love Remy Ngamije's The Eternal Audience of One. And
Eternal Audience of One.
Yeah. If you're looking at crime, he's from Namibia. If you're looking at crime fiction, if you're a big fan of crime fiction, Le, Adenle, and Angela Makolo. Angela Makolo's Red Ink is actually a really brilliant crime fiction book. It's based on a serial killer that was here in South Africa. And Red Ink is actually available on Showmax as well as a movie. But Red Ink, the book, is also really brilliant. So yeah, I recommend books like all day. So I think we need to cut this short.
Thank you. That's an excellent list. I'm sure it's gonna get us easily through 2024. So I'm looking forward to reading some of these. And then I was thinking maybe there are also some movies and series which you can recommend, or maybe that's not your cup of coffee. I don't know.
No, I actually don't take seriously any writer who says they don't watch TV.
They're not in touch.
Yeah, so the aforementioned Red Ink, that's on Showmax. You know, a lot of people don't know this, but it's one of the most beautiful pieces of art. And you know, I wish there was a second series of it, and it's on Netflix. The Messiah.
The Messiah. Okay.
Messiah, beautiful. There is a movie called Stitching Palestine. It's a documentary. It's worth watching. It's a documentary of 12 Palestinian women having a conversation about exile and the memories that they have of being in Palestine prior. It's a beautiful documentary worth watching. In fact, yeah, it's really, I know like a lot of countries will be watching it for Week for Palestine, which is 1 to 7 May, you know.
Oh,
So
okay.
if you want it, I'm happy to send it to you.
Yeah, please. And that's also good, I think, to know that that we have this week for Palestine coming very soon.
Mm.
Then the question of future projects. What you yourself are your future projects you're working already on or going into?
I'm hoping to revive Virtually Yours. You know, the way the German government is constituted at the moment, I can't obviously do it to the Goethe Institute until, you know, at
Mm.
later date. But if I can get some funding, I'm hoping to revive Virtually Yours,
Yeah.
with writers from Africa and its diasporas, you know, so the Caribbean, the US, Canada, etc.,
Mm.
Europe. You know, my next novel is coming out in August, September,
Oh,
and it's
soon.
Love, Marry, Kill.
Very soon.
Yeah. So it's
Yeah.
coming out in South Africa. It's coming out South Africa for Southern Africa, and
Yeah.
then Nigeria for West Africa, and Kenya for East Africa. And my publisher is still shopping it out to um, UK and the US.
Mm.
And
And
yes, and yeah, and I have another project that I'm doing with a bunch of other writers, which
yeah.
I'm very excited about. Um, and just about to go into print right now, so I'm very excited about it. But I will tell you about it at a later date because
Okay, yeah.
my mind, I have forgotten the title.
Yeah. Yeah, and you've got so many different things going on. It's probably not. And this your novel you are on to the second or third draft, or you are still
No,
finishing the
no,
original?
no, it's I'm already getting
Uh-huh.
covers what you call it from my publishers, from all the different publishers.
Yeah.
It's finished, it's done.
Uh-huh. Okay.
It's
Okay.
finished.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
That sounds exciting. Then another question still, sorry, I have so many. Is
I am doing the campaign. Sorry. I'm doing the
yeah.
campaign, the spokesperson for Week for Palestine.
Yeah.
That's my area.
Oh, yeah. You are, I was gonna still mention this. You're very Palestine oriented, also with the what's it? What's the name again for the scarf? Get the
Oh,
name.
the kafir.
The kafir. Yeah, exactly. Um, yeah. So you're still active there in that respect, also.
Yeah, I'm actually the spokesperson for Week for Palestine, and
Yeah.
yeah, so I'm in
So
South Africa for a reason.
yeah. So it will be. This is taking a bit off topic, but it will be difficult for next year with the situation
Also,
because there's so much violence now. You know, to have the literary festival again in Palestine, I imagine would be difficult with
I
this level of violence.
know what you call it, but even when I went last year, they didn't allow us to go into Gaza.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't allow us to go into Gaza, and by they, I'm talking about Israel.
Yeah.
They didn't permit us to go into Gaza. You know,
Mm.
I hope it happens because I think more and more people need to be on the ground and to be able to tell that truth. But those of us who have been, I know Tejuko has been there and he's written about it very candidly. I know what's his name? The journalist, Hill,
Yeah.
uh, Mark Lamont Hill has been
Mm.
there and has written very candidly about it. And yeah, you know. So those of us who've been there, Maza Mengiste has written about it.
Mm.
Um, a lot of other writers have written about it, and we stand on our truth, and we know what we experienced, and we know how horrible it was. Molly Crabapple was also a writer, has been there. Ibtissam Azam obviously is Palestinian, so she might be judged for being biased, but those of us who've been there know our truth, and we know what happened, and we know the exploitation, the colonialism, the settler colonialism, the genocide.
Then something future oriented is, and we can hold very briefly. What would you say from the perspective you are at now? What would you tell your future self in 10 years, 20 years from now?
Grow up.
Is this, it's something you've been working with?
But also never grow up.
Yeah, try to hold the balance. So yeah, I think for me it has been really fantastic to have this kind of interview with you, and to get an idea of all the things you have done, and your thoughts on these different topics. And yeah, I hope for you it hasn't been too too much of a chore.
No, it's been a pleasure. Thank you very much, Temba. But now I really must dash.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, much strength with this next activity, and I'll let you know when I have worked it together.
Okay, fantastic.
Okay. Thank you very much. Take care.
All right.
Bye.